Hi, everyone. We are so excited to announce that Global Educators Resource Bank is starting a podcast. We are really excited about your potential collaboration. We want to hear from as many language teachers around the world as possible to share best practices and our own insight on where we think education is going in a post pandemic world. So, how does this work? First, we need to get you registered. We ask that you fill out this Google form called Global Adcast Interview Series. You will find the link here. You're going to tell us your email address, where you are from, where you teach, a little bit about your teaching experience, what ages have you taught, describe how the pandemic changed or impacted your school specifically, a little bit about where you think teaching is going to go in the future in your subject matter and geographic location after the pandemic, and what are three best tips for educators in a post-pandemic world. So just best practices. These are all of the questions that we'll be asking you in the podcast. So you have a minute or two to think about them before you go ahead and go live with us. After you fill out this form, we ask that you select a time, a 30-minute time slot via Calendly, and you just click the days that you would like. So I'll go ahead and say I want to record this on Monday, the 26th, and I'll look at what times are available, and I'll say, okay, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's perfect. I'll go ahead and select, confirm. After you confirm, you'll get an email saying that you have registered for that time slot with us. So that's how we're going to ask for you to register. It's going to be great fun. And Armin and I are now going to show you exactly what a sample podcast will look like. So Armin, do you want to go ahead and share with us the link that we're going to use?
Okay, so we are using a technology called Anchor. This technology is free, and the only way it works is either on a computer or on a phone. I prefer to use a phone. And what it does after you download this application, you can record audios of yourself speaking, or you can send a link as you would send an invitation link for a Google Meet or a Zoom meeting. And after you send that link, you will be able to invite other people to join you. So right now I am going to invite Louise to join. You can hear some music starting. I click on the invitation. You don't need to know how to send the invitation because we're going to send it to you. But what you will need to know how to do is download the application of this Anchor on your phone, or at least sign in on your computer. So I click on the link, I send it to Louise. Once Louise opens it, the recording will begin. And we'll just do the introduction podcast. And it's just us talking a little bit about what we want to do. And this is an example for you of what you could potentially do with your class to kind of get them involved and excited and engaged in using sound and other forms of creativity. So, Louise, you let me know when you get it, and I'll email it to you too. And as soon as you click it, I'll be able to see that you've came live, and then we can start. So I'm waiting. You can't see, but I'm waiting here, and it's saying waiting for your other partner to arrive into the meeting. So Louise is
Give me
checking,
one.
and this is the patience part, um, where you say, "Oh, the technology's not working, or there's something wrong." There's nothing wrong.
No, it just came in. So now I'm on.
And once she clicks it, then we're gonna be able to start the actual meeting. So I'm the first one here saying,
So as soon as I get the link, it's just going to ask me for my name and email address and how I want my name to appear. So I'll write
"Share your
Louise.
screen." Do you want to share your screen so people can see?
Um,
Oh, doesn't matter. You're in. It's fine. All right, cool. So we're gonna shut off our speakers here, and we can start. All right, welcome to the Global Edcast. My name is Armin, and my fellow presenter educator is Louise. Louise, introduce yourself.
Hi, Armin. It's wonderful to be here today.
Yeah,
I'm so excited about this podcast recording.
you listen to podcasts, I do as well. And we also decided we want to be creators of a podcast as a practice experience for us. And I think that it's going to help inspire teachers. So, what is the aim of this global edcast for educators around the world, Louise?
Yeah, so our overall objective is in order to create a platform where different educators can kind of give their voice to where they think education is going, share best practices, and stay interconnected as a larger global community. The more that people can learn from each other, the better, and hopefully create connections that can carry them well beyond just a certain lesson plan or semester.
I think that's a really good point because I know that a lot of the learning that I've done since COVID has started has been through building relationships internationally, or it could be with other American teachers. But what I like about this international connections that we do is I gain confidence when I share my ideas, and I know other teachers also gain confidence when they share and hear other people's ideas. So a lot of this is about building our confidence in a very uncomfortable global educational, social, internal, external situation and sharing together. So, what are you showing us there, Louise?
I'm just trying to share with everyone. I'm actually recording on a second device, the podcast, but I want you to see how it works that you're basically just in essentially a blank chat room between you and another person, and you can see who's speaking, and it's just a really easy to use interface.
Exactly. So that's more or less what this podcast will look like. Every time we're going to interview a really new and exciting teacher from another country or the same country and to just get their insights on some questions. So, as practice, Louise, do you want to be the interviewer and I can be the interviewee and you can ask me some of the questions that we're going to ask people?
Wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and play bonus round with Armin on some of our great questions. So, Armin, first off, tell us where you're from and where you're teaching now.
Okay, I'm not from San Francisco, even though I have the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge behind me. I'm from right outside of New York City, and I work in a primary school in Connecticut. I've been teaching ESL for the past 12, 13 years, and that's more or less where I teach. I love teaching. I also love sharing. It's really important to me. So I that's what I'm about, and I try to create in places and situations with my students where they can share and learn together and teach as well.
Wonderful. And Armin, can you tell everyone a little bit about your experiences and your career? Where all have you taught and what different levels have you taught in your career?
Sure. Well, I studied international development at a school in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I got really into Spanish. And I also had studied French in high school, so I'm really into international perspectives, you could say. And when I finished my university studies, I had done an exchange in Martinique where I was teaching English to children in a primary school. Martinique is a French island. And I realized, wow, teaching in different countries and different cultures is kind of exciting. So I came back and I studied more about that topic, ESL, and then I found myself teaching to immigrants in different schools in New York City, as well as in Westchester, which is an area north of New York City. And I've done that for about 6 years, on and off, not continuously in the same school. So it's given me diverse perspectives and experiences. And then I've also been able to teach in Brazil, which is how I met Louise. We both did Fulbrights. And I wanted to share with teachers that a lot of times you apply for things and you don't get it the first time. Louise, have you ever experienced that?
Yes.
So that doesn't mean you give up. That means you look for in Portuguese we say dar um jeito. It means you make your way. If you can't go straight along the road, right along this bridge behind me, you find a ferry or a boat that will take you around to the other side. So I learned that concept in Brazil. but I think it's a concept we all need as teachers because, we think we're going to teach and we're going to go here. We start the lesson, and by the end of the lesson, the students are there. But then we realize they're somewhere over here in the mountains. And then we have to go after them in the mountains to try to bring them back here on this side and then bring them across. So I've learned that in my teaching in different places. I've taught in Mauritius, or as an English language fellow, and also just in different challenging situations in the US as well, because teaching's not easy, right? It can be a very
Yes,
frustrating job. Have you ever had frustrations while teaching, Louise?
every day,
It's really
especially during COVID.
it's really frustrating, and you have to deal with difficult situations with other people, with students, technology, um, when something doesn't work how you want. So like all these frustrations leave me feeling really like frustrated and annoyed and alone. So then I just started reaching out, and even for a while when COVID hit, I lost my job. So I just started doing a lot of online classes and learning and exchanges, and I just started feeling less frustrated and more purposeful. And then that's how I got into this um, way of not being frustrated with my situation, but learning how to learn from it.
Wonderful. Armin, to dive into that a little more, can you explain how the pandemic has impacted your field of teaching? It sounds like you've really taken the path, and when there was a roadblock, you went to the left or you went to the right and kind of pivoted. How do you think the pandemic has impacted your teaching experiences and your teaching techniques?
Sure. Well, for one, when I found a technique, so I'll say like I was working in a high school in the fall, and I found a technique that was working for me and working for the students. Um, I tried to continue using that same technique over and over until my students became used to it. So I created a routine around what happens in the classroom, and it made things less stressful for me
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm like shopping for a new technology every week, I'm going to be so confused. And I'm going to confuse my students. And I'm a kind of teacher who's always excited about this, excited about that. Look at the stars, look at the sun, look at this, look at the mountains, look at the ocean, look at the fish. And by the end, you've looked everywhere, but you've done nothing. So I kind of use my lifeboat in teaching with certain technologies because I had students at home who weren't coming to school and students who were at school, and mine were like Padlet or Flipgrid, and also like just straight teaching. You have to teach information, but then you have to give students time to experiment. So for me, it was an experiment for me. It was an experiment for them. But I found certain technologies that I really loved. If I'm not married, but if I got married to the technology, it would have been one of the two of those. And I just kept using them, and I kept using them and using them again and again, and I did them in trainings, I did them in other activities, and it allowed me to gain new ideas through seeing the response of other people. So I think that we think we're so important, or we're so dumb, or we're so smart, or whatever we think, but the truth is that we only learn through mistakes, and we only learn through seeing the response of others, like an audience, right? So I did that with my adult classes. I did that with my children. I did that with my high school students, with some teacher training. And through trial and error, I started to find a path. And the path is not there. I haven't made it to the other side of the bridge. This metaphor is there for a reason. If you saw the picture of my background in Zoom, it's a bridge. And the bridge never ends. You go from one island to the next. So that's where I am.
Armin's still rafting out there.
I'm still somewhere in the ocean.
Wonderful. The ocean sounds like a good place to be. And I think that a lot of the points you mentioned about kind of choosing a consistency and a technique with technology is so important, especially when we're just kind of inundated with options. Armin, the next thing I want to ask you is, based off of your experiences with COVID, what do you think the future of teaching in your subject matter and geographic location will look like?
Well, I wouldn't be able to say the future of teaching for all age levels because every age level is really different. Um, so I'm going to talk about adult education because I'd say out of all the different types of teaching that I do, I just love teaching adults. So for me, the future of education is responsive. It's responsive to need. It's with a goal. So like I have a goal. By the end of my lesson, for instance, I want my students to feel more comfortable with speaking to a doctor. Like, because they're going to have to deal with that as learners of English in the United States. They're going to have to go to a doctor. They're maybe have to deal with insurance or whatever the topic is. So, what I felt I did in my class that really worked, it was I gave them moments and chances to learn the vocabulary related to that, to learn the phrases related to what you would do when you meet a doctor, and then I let them have fun. And to me, that involved pretending that I mean, it's not too fun to have an illness. It sucks, but pretending you had some illness, and then someone, the doctor is going to try to help you. And none of them are doctors. They don't know how to necessarily do that, but I think role play is really important, and taking on the roles of different people makes a language learning classroom and environment much more interesting. And I did that with breakout rooms where some of them would work with each other in the classroom, and others, I'm just talking about this context right now because it's very different with every level. And some were working um, digitally, like someone at home and someone at school. So to me, that was very exciting, and uh, I kind of consider my job two things. It's not just teaching English, but it's also giving joy. And that to me, I think, is the future education, because if it's only about learning, but it doesn't involve people personally being invested, learning in a traditional sense of memorizing and then, testing, and those things are important, then we kind of lose the soul of what we want people to do, which is, I think, be creative and spontaneous, but also be proficient. So to me, balancing those three things, creativity, spontaneity, and proficiency, through what we ask students to do in the classroom is key. So that's my answer for the future, because I don't know when this online, in person, all these things end, but I think that we're going to have to be spontaneous, creative, and supportive to succeed.
Yes, I could not agree more. The future is unclear, and we can just kind of go out there with our best resources to help arm kids and students of all ages with what they need to succeed. Very true. And Armin, if you wanted to give your best three tips or best practices to teachers in a post-pandemic world, what would they be?
Okay. Well, I don't think that we're going to enter in a post-pandemic world. I think that the world will constantly be influenced by this event. It may transform the way the education system works for the rest of our lives. I don't know when it's going to be post. That's my first comment. So, three ideas, simple ideas. I would say, as a teacher, give yourself something you love every day. Uh, because I know that if I don't feel I'm in love with just life in some way, it's very hard for me to give love and life to what I'm doing. So that's number one. It seems simple, but it's really difficult because you get lost in the heaviness of whatever, school or life is giving you. That's one. You said techniques that people could use in their teaching.
Yeah, best three tips for a teacher.
Okay, so one, do what you love and do it on a daily basis. Uh, Number two is find someone you can lean on. No one built a bridge alone. Okay, this background's there for a reason. A lot of people worked. Some people were really good at climbing. Others are really good at imagining. Others were really good at going into the ocean. So every person has a purpose. And if you don't feel you have a purpose, even as a teacher, I feel that sometimes I feel like I've lost my direction. My purpose is whatever it is, but find what your purpose is and some aspect of teaching that you love and do it. So, and you have to keep refining that. Refine it and refine it. So it's
Right.
two things. You got to refine it and refine it. And I'd say the third thing, so do what you love, find your purpose and refine it and refine it. For me, exchanges are really exciting. I don't know. I always push my students to do it, whether they want to or not, because it's real life interaction. So that's the third thing. Connect your classroom to some element of what's happening in real life. I think that that motivates students. I think it gives them a sense of ownership over learning. And it also makes them realize that the education is not just for a grade for a teacher, but it's
Hmm.
for their own betterment, and it can also better other people. So those are the three things. Try do what you love every day, refined and refined, refine and refined your passion and purpose, and make your classroom an authentic place for the world. So your classroom and the world should be connected. Thank you.
That's wonderful. So, everyone, that would basically be what one of our podcasts look like. Um, just very honest conversations with teachers to kind of figure out where we are and what we can do better and what we can learn from each other and move the conversation forward. We hope that you'll join us.
All right. Thank you for the interview, Louise. I'm going to interview you next time. It's going to be my turn.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay. Bye, everyone.